Hello, I am Pramod Pandey, Center for Linguistics, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Today, I am going to talk about the phenomenon of word stress. The title of the module is Metrical Phonology, Word Stress 1. We'll talk about word stress in two modules, in the present module and in the following module. The reason for this is that the theory of word stress has developed over these about 45 years and has had at least two main versions, both of which are usable in the theory. That is why we would like you to be introduced to both these versions, for you to be able to use any one of them or either of them. What we do in this module is that we take a look at the first phase of the theory of metrical phonology in explicating word stress. We begin with seeing how the standard classical generative phonological model was not able to explicate word stress, which was according to our intuition, which was according to the main principle of grammar writing, namely simplification, simple, as well as generality. Now, the rules appear to be very complicated. We have talked about this time and again, and we have to talk about it again in this module. When we go to talk about how the metrical theory of stress came to be proposed, mainly by Bruce Hayes, although there were so many others who have contributed to it, the theory itself started with Lieberman and Prinz in a well-known article on metrical stress, and then various phonologists such as Selkirk, for example, have contributed to our understanding about the notion of foot and then word stress, and many others. Although the theory that we are going to be familiar with, was fully proposed in the work by Bruce Hayes, 1981, which was based on an examination of a large number of languages, about 300 languages of the world. Now, when we look at this theory, we will look at all the various parameters on the basis of which the theory proposes its model, and how all of them justify the metrical theory. The metrical theory is insightfully capable of representing word stress and of proposing word stress rules. So we will learn about the assignment of word stress rules, and before we go on to some of the important notions in the following module, and the second phase theory of word stress in the second module. So let's take a look at the account of word stress in the SPE, sound pattern of English. Look at the rule here, given here, which has been represented in different forms elsewhere. What we have here is a rule which says that a syllable, a vowel is stressed if it occurs in the antepenultimate syllable, and if the penultimate syllable is light, and if the penultimate syllable is heavy, then it is stressed in penultimate syllable, and if the final syllable is heavy, then it is stressed in the final syllable. Now, there are two things about this rule. Number one, that it assumes that there is a feature called stress, the distinctive feature called stress, plus stress and minus stress, and two, that word stress can be derived by this kind of segmental rules. So we have phonological rules which say a vowel is plus stress in certain contexts. Now, both these assumptions of about stress have come to be questioned, especially because of the basic assumption about word stress, first of all, being a feature. There are also certain aspects of word structure in world languages which this particular theory, that is the classical theory of SPE, is unable to explain. Metrical theory of stress expounds those basic parameters of the variation of word stress in different languages using an economic model of representing word stress. Let's turn to it. Metrical theory of word stress, Bruce Hayes, 1981. What the theory says is that word stress can be represented on a tree structure. As you notice on the screen, we have two words here, differ and defer. What we notice here in the representation is that the difference between them is expressed by different labels. So in differ, the left syllable is labeled as S, that is strong, and the right syllable is labeled as W, that is weak, and the opposite for the other word. And it has one basic advantage, that the notion of stress, which is as relative prominence, that's how we understand word stress in the best possible manner, because there is no single correlate of word stress, as we all know. That is, there is no phonetic quality that is found for word stress in all languages. Sometimes we have word stress expressed by quantity, length. Sometimes it is expressed by higher pitch or lower pitch, a change of pitch or higher amplitude. It can be or vowel quality. Because word stress does not have a single phonetic correlate, we have to find an explanation for it. All we know is that a stressed syllable is relatively more prominent than an unstressed syllable. So this label strong and weak expresses it quite insightfully. Hayes developed this theory of stress based on this notion of strong and weak. What he does is that he formalized these notions in terms of two terms, dominant and recessive. So a dominant the word dominant stands for a certain type of branching, and recessive stands for a certain type, another type of branching. It is now proposed that a recessive, which stands for a weak syllable, does not branch. So if there is a branchingness of a note, then it has to be labeled as D or dominant, and it has to be considered to be strong. Now this way of representing the metrical tree structure allowed Hayes to account for various kinds of stress patterns. Words with initial stress, for example, would be shown to have all the branches, the dominant branches on the left, and the weak branches, the recessive branches on the right, and so on. Take a look at the discussion in the e-text. Now we turn to the parameters of word stress. Now there are four main parameters of word stress that have been proposed, and both of them, and all the four of them, actually explain all the various aspects of word stress in different languages. The first parameter, stress systems in world languages vary on the parameter of quantity sensitivity. What do we mean by this? What we mean is that this placement of stress in words may depend on the quantitative difference between the syllables. So we have, in quantity sensitive systems, we have at least 2 degrees of weight a light syllable and a heavy syllable. There is a difference between them. In most of these quantity sensitive systems, a heavy syllable can be stressed easily, a light syllable can be stressed only in certain positions, etc. And there are systems, however, which are quantity insensitive systems. What do you mean by quantity insensitive system? What we mean is all that the stress system knows is that there are certain syllables, 2 syllables, stress every first syllable, third syllable, fifth syllable. You do not look into the internal, the inner, the weight of the syllable. So we have quantity sensitive and quantity insensitive systems. We will take a look at the examples in a little while. The other kind of system, the other kind of parameter is boundedness parameter. What we notice in world languages is that we have languages which have mainly one stress. Let's say initial stress or final stress, or it can be the one after the initial, pen initial, or the one before the final, that is penultimate stress. So at the edges only. Unlike these, we have systems where stresses can recur, can be iterated. So you have, as we said, first syllable, third syllable, fifth syllable, etc. The latter type are said to be bounded systems, systems with bounded stress. So the metrical trees are limited, they are binary branching, and the unbounded system, you may have multiple branches. We will again, as I said, take a look at them in a little while. The third parameter is of dominance, that is, given 2 syllables, there may be languages which say every time, always the left syllable should be strong, should be the one which should be stressed. The right is not stressed. There are languages which have the opposite system. Given 2 syllables, always stress the right one, not the left one. So stress systems vary on this parameter. We call them left dominant systems or right dominant systems. And the fourth parameter is that of directionality, that is, stress systems differ here on the basis of whether the trees are raised on the word going from the right to the left or from the left to the right. As we will see, this makes a big difference. That is, it is not possible to explain stress in languages which follow one of these systems. When it comes to even number syllables, so if we have 4 syllables, let's say something like da 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 da, and if we have patterns like da 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 da, then it will be not very easy to spell out whether the stress system, the stress assignment is from the left to the right or from the right to the left. Because you can say either way. If it is from the left to the right, you can say the labels are WS, WS. If it is from the right to the left, then you'll say the system is SW, SW. So both ways are possible. But when we have even odd number syllables, then we will see that it is easy for us to determine the directionality. So these 4 parameters, one is quantity sensitivity, the other is boundedness, the third is dominance, and the fourth is directionality. These 4 give us all the possible parameters of variation of word stress systems in world languages. The notion of degenerate foot. Apart from the 4 parameters that we have seen, we need to introduce ourselves to 2 important notions. One is that of degenerate foot and the other of extrametricality, which work along with these 4 parameters. What we find is that there are languages in bounded systems where you have multiple feet. What we find is that there are languages which will require, if it is a quantity insensitive system, it needs 2 syllables. So every 2 syllable there is stress. There are languages, if there is only 1 syllable, then it leaves out that syllable because it does not meet the requirement of 2 syllables. However, although a language may ask for 2 syllables, but if there is only 1 syllable, then that syllable is also stressed at the end, either at the beginning or at the end. So what is the explanation for this? The explanation is the notion degenerate foot. Such a foot is allowed, the stress is allowed to be placed, a degenerate foot is allowed to be raised in the language. But this has to be known, this has to be specified. Take a look at the representation of a degenerate foot on the screen here, number 14. As you notice here, given 5 syllables, so you start from the right, 2 syllables, SW, then 2 syllables, SW, and then there's only 1 syllable, so the foot is raised on it, giving rise to 3 feet. If the language did not allow degenerate foot, then there would be only 2 stresses. So this is something that has to be taken into account, whether in addition to bounded feet, if degenerate feet are also allowed in the system. Now to rules for the assignment of stress feet. This is something important and necessary for us, something useful, and that we need to do when we look at the data for the sake of accounting for the stress patterns by giving them rules. Now, what we do is, as given in 15 here, that we have these rules given in different stages. Let me read it out for you. Number 1, raise foot or feet of a type following the 4 parameters: quantity sensitive, quantity insensitive, bounded, unbounded, left dominant, right dominant, left to right or right to left. So this is something important. That is, once you have considered all the parameters of quantity sensitivity, boundedness, etc., then state a rule mentioning all these features. So raise a tree, etc., which is quantity insensitive, dominant, right, left dominant, right to left, or left to right, etc. And then find out whether in bounded systems there is a degenerate foot allowed or not. This is something that you have to do. And then finally, we say, now based on these feet, we raise word trees as left dominant or right dominant. What has to be noted here is that sometimes the dominant type, that is left dominant or right dominant, may not be the same for word stress and for the foot, stress at the foot level. They may be quite different. Now, how do you know that the word dominance at the word level is not the same as the dominance at the foot level? Well, we say, suppose a system has left dominant feet starting from right to left. So 6 syllables, you will say da 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 da. Now it so happens that of all these, the last syllable is the one which contains the primary stress. So the system will read like da 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 da, da 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 da. Now the last foot is the one which is stressed. Then we will say the foot, at the word level, the labeling is WS, not SW. So the dominant is right dominant, not left dominant. So this is how primary and secondary stresses are expressed in different languages. So for the illustration of the word stress rules, let's turn to some data from natural language. The data are from the Australian language Pen2P, which has been discussed in great detail in Hayes, and you see the examples on the screen. I am reading them out for you. So we have Panga, Tutaya, Marawana, Pilinkalatu, Tiamu Limpa Tiunku, Tiri Ringu Lampatu. So what we notice is, then we have the last word also, Kura Nyulu Limpa Tura. Now what we have in this system is, if you pay close attention, what we find is that the primary stress is placed on the leftmost syllable. The secondary stress is placed on the third syllable. What does that mean? Third, fifth, seventh, etc. So in example 1 we have one stress, example 3 we have 2 stresses, so 4 syllables, etc. First one is stress, the third one is not. First one is primary stress, the third one is secondary stress, etc., etc. Now, when we have this kind of regularity, then what does that mean for us? So, in terms of syllabic representation, the stress pattern is shown as in 17, as you notice here. That is, the first syllable has the primary stress, and the third, fifth, and seventh have the secondary stresses. The seventh has secondary stress only if there is a following eighth syllable as well. So, and in odd number of syllables, we have we have stresses which do not take into account the last syllable, as you see in 2, and then 4, and then 7. These are odd numbered one syllable is left out. We know what it means is that the degenerate feet are not allowed into this system. So the system of Pen2P can be said to have the following features. It's a bounded system. It's a quantity insensitive system because every odd number syllable is stressed, provided there is no degenerate feet are allowed. Then the feet are raised from left to right, and then what we have is that the system must be seen to be left dominant system, and on that we have words free raised, which also must be left dominant, because the leftmost stress is the one which bears the primary stress. Now this system has to be now explained in terms of rules. How do we write the rules for Pen2P stress? Take a look at the rule given here in 18. It says there are 2 rules, foot construction rule and word layer construction rule. The foot construction rule says raise left dominant, quantity insensitive, bounded trees from left to right. Degenerate feet not allowed. Word layer construction says raise a left dominant word tree, and both these rules together will give us the representations of word stress in the words in Pen2P, as you can see in 19 for all the words there. Now a question that may arise for you is, what happens to the final syllable in the odd numbered words of what happens to them is that the final syllable in them, because it cannot be footed, so it is finally adjoined to the word tree, so that it is not left out of the word, but it is a part of the word. So the adjoining is done at the word level, not at the foot level. That's how all these complicated tree structures are raised. So now we have come to the end of the metrical tree theory of stress. We looked at the various parameters and also the notion of degenerate foot. What we need is another notion which plays a very important role in foot construction, that is called extrametricality. The notion extrametricality has been important for a very long time and has come to stay. This notion is also to be taken into account in writing word stress rules. So we will see that our word stress rules will have to take into account this notion apart from the notion of degenerate foot. That's in the following module. Thank you.